covered four of the cornerstones of our faith. We talked a couple of weeks ago about communion and how when you get past all the rituals and expectations, we see how beautifully powerful that original sacrament was and is as Jesus uses it to unite us, breaking down human distinctions and celebrating our unity in Christ's love. Last week, we talked about how baptism, when you get right down to its root, is a welcoming into this radical unity, united fellowship that we have. We talked about the new clothes that we all wear, the same clothes, and the new language that we speak that outside world can't understand words like grace and compassion and justice and mercy, but we do, and we expand our vocabulary. Next week, we're going to really dig into the power of and what really the Lord's Prayer means. But today, we're going to go into the Ten Commandments. And I have to say, when you deal with something that's about 3,000 years old, you get to thinking, well, what new can be said about the Ten Commandments? As a matter of fact, a lot of people think that they've reinterpreted them. One psychic reinterpreted it because she said that she got a direct line to God, and God told her, rewrite the Ten Commandments, and she did. For example, the commandment, thou shalt not kill, she rewrote as, don't kill off your sense of adventure. And the commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery, she translated, don't be unfaithful to yourself. Friends, there is no need to reinterpret the Ten Commandments. There is a need, though, to strip away the layers and let God speak freshly to us. And that's exactly what's going to happen today. Hear now the original story of the Ten Commandments.
Reading from the Common English Bible, Exodus chapter 20. Then God spoke all these words, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You must have no other gods before me. Do not make an idol for yourself, no form whatsoever of anything in the sky above, or on the earth below, or in the waters under the earth. Do not use the Lord your God's name as if it were of no significance. The Lord won't forgive anyone who uses his name that way. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Honor your father and your mother so that your life will be long on the fertile land that the Lord your God is giving you. Do not kill. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not testify falsely against your neighbor. Do not desire your neighbor's house. Do not desire and try to take your neighbor's wife, male or female servant, ox, donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor. When all the people witnessed the thunder and the lightning, the sound of the horn and the mountain smoking, the people shook with fear and stood at a distance. They said to Moses, you speak to us and we'll listen, but don't let God speak to us or we'll die. Moses said to the people, don't be afraid, because God has come only to test you and to make sure you are always in awe of God, so that you don't sin. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Oh, Lord our God, we give you thanks for the ability and the freedom to worship right here at this time. And would you please move your Spirit into the words about to be spoken and heard, into that which will be thought and felt, so that in all ways we honor the living Christ in our midst. Amen. So, this is rhetorical, so you don't have to answer this, but what came to your mind when you heard those thou shalt and thou shalt nots? For me, I regress several years and think I'm a kid again. Oh yeah, you want me not to do that and you want me to do that? And that's the way many of us think. We default back to our childhood because no one likes to be told what to do. And when we naturally think this about the Ten Commandments, we are dead wrong because we jump to the thou shalts and the thou shalt nots without reading the context. The context makes all the difference in the world. Because what came before those 10 commandments was this. Then God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You see, Moses just didn't make these things up. This is the first time in history that God talks to a people. I mean, God talked to Moses, God talked to Abraham, but that's different. This is for all the people and for generation after generation to come. So God is opening God's heart and saying, this is what I want in a relationship with you. It's an invitation, a pure invitation to join me in a way that you've never joined me before, to know me in a way that you've never known me before. I like what the scholar Thomas Long wrote about the Ten Commandments in an article in Christian Century. He said, understanding the Ten Commandments as a set of burdens overlooks something essential, namely that they are prefaced not by an order, here are the rules, obey them, but instead by a breathtaking announcement of freedom. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of slavery. We will probably always refer to the declarations that follow as the Ten Commandments, but we can also think of them as descriptions of the life that prevails in the zone of God's liberation. Because the Lord is your God, the Ten Commandments affirm, you are free not to need any other gods. You are free to rest on the seventh day, free from the tyranny of lifeless idols, free from murder, stealing, covetousness as ways to establish yourself in the land. You see, this is a fundamentally different way of looking at the Ten Commandments than simply a list of what you can't do and what you can do. No, it's totally different. It is a declaration of freedom, as Dr. Long said. Think of how our life would be different right now if all God's children accepted and followed the Ten Commandments. We would not once again be grieving with the people in Munich or in Nice or in Shreveport or in Sandy Hook or in Iraq or Syria, because there would be no terrorism. And there would be no violence if we could accept the freedom to live as God asks us to live in relationship to God and to one another. We would not have to figure out how to stop the beeping on our security systems when the lights go off. Wouldn't have to figure that out anymore because we would not need security systems and we would not need locks. The Ten Commandments, God's way of saying, be free. It's important to hear that. It's where life is. And once we establish the fact that they're not restrictive, but they're opening to us, that's when we can take it one step farther. We can look at all those invitations, we'll call them, and we'll see that there is a distinct value that God places in our relationship with God and with one another. And it's summed up this way. The relationship God expects is one that's characterized by respect displayed through honesty. And I love it. And if you don't get anything else out of this sermon, it's this, that the 10 invitations are an invitation to a relationship characterized by respect displayed through honesty. Respect and honesty are two sides of the same coin. You cannot really respect someone and be dishonest with them, can you? And if you are really honest, even sacrificially to someone, you're really showing an ultimate form of respect. And in a way, you're actually showing a display of love. I remember a premarital counseling I did many, many years ago, a young couple. She was a school teacher. He was in the Marines. And I asked in the course of this, what is your definition of love? I asked each of them to describe it. The school teacher said something about warm romantic feelings and a bond of friendship and feeling close to another person. The Marine fiancé said, when I think of love, I think of my feelings for my commanding officer. That was a showstopper. And I always remember her going, what? And he went on to quickly explain that love for him means being able to respect someone and to trust someone implicitly, no questions asked. And he's right. And that's a type of love in one respect that we see in the Ten Commandments. God's honesty. God is pouring it all out. I love for you, I care for you so much that here is where my heart is, and here is what I expect and I hope for in our relationship. Let me just take those first four of those invitations. I'm going to rephrase them a little bit, and I want to talk about them because it shows God's radical honesty and respect for us. Make our relationship a priority, the first commandment. God is saying, I love you so much, I want to be able to listen to you every day. I want to be able to share my thoughts and my feelings with you each and every day. And I so hope that you are not so caught up in following STL Today or in your Twittering or in your Facebooking or in your Pokemoning that you don't give me time to talk and to relate. It is a sin to just rush through your day and give God whatever's left over. It is a compliment to God to say, you are so important to me, God. I know I have all these things, but I want to simply stop and listen. Make our relationship a priority, God honestly says. Second thing, God says, don't be loyal to lesser gods. I love you so much that I don't want you worrying. I don't want you going hither and thither, all worked up as if your life depends on whether you get that promotion, whether you make the grade, whether you get the scholarship, if you get that relationship. All these things are lesser gods. I don't want you to get so caught up thinking that the world is going to come to an end if this candidate gets elected or if that candidate gets elected. Stop it. I'm talking about my kingdom breaking into this world in which you're an important part of it. So you can dance with these other partners. You have ambition, you have desires, that's fine. Go ahead and dance to the music to one song, but remember who took you to the dance and who's going to take you home from the dance. It's me. And rest in that relationship. God says, respect me with your words. God says, you know you are so important to me. Mike, Greta, Barbara, Sam, you are so important to me that whenever I speak your name, I speak it with reverence. Because of the 7 billion plus other people in this world, there is no one just like you. And so I give reverence to your name and I speak it with holiness. So why would you ever treat my name as if it were a 3-letter prefix to a 4-letter curse? If you love me, show me in your words. For where your words are, there your heart is displayed. Finally, in the fourth of the commandments, invitations, him is set time to relax and remember. Boy, is it neat to see each and every one of you here. It is, because you're obeying the fourth commandment invitation, and it's difficult at times. But don't you know that you're imitating God when you do it? We are made in God's image, which means that we create. We're able to plant the flowers. We're able to mow the lawns. We're able to create a beautiful building like this and create works of art through the French horn, through painting. We can do all that. We work hard, but it is sacred to stop and look back, just like God stopped and looked back and said it was good. And it's important for us to be right here every Sunday that we can be, to praise God and to imitate God. That's the ultimate form of respect and being honest. And you know what all those 4 things that you see on the screen have in common? It means that if you really are honest with God, then you're going to adjust your lifestyle accordingly. Every one of those things makes you stop and adjust things. You cannot be a Christian in the abstract. You can only be a Christian in the concrete. Setting your priorities, giving God your time and your allegiance and your passion, and watching your words. That's what God demands. That's what God asks for and seeks in a relationship. You know how freeing that is? And if we really are serious about that, one of the best ways we can practice being honest and respectful to God is to be honest and respectful to one another. And that's what the next 6 commandments are. Pastor Winter shared with me what one of her professors did in rephrasing these to really bring out the original meaning. And I'm going to go right through them like in rapid order here. The first one is, do not treat with contempt members of the family. Do not do violence against fellow humans. Do not violate the commitment of sexual love. Do not claim the life or goods of others. Do not damage others through the misuse of speech. And finally, do not lust after the life or goods of others. And what's behind all of them is to be respectfully honest with another person. What's not said is that if you disrespect someone, what you're going to be doing is deceiving someone, working behind someone's back. And once you start that, then the thread of society, the thread of trust, the thread of freedom disappears, unravels, and then we separate trying to live by ourselves with the other as the enemy as opposed to being the brother or the sister. It takes radical honesty to live those 6 commandments one with the other. And I want to say it's one of the easiest things in the world for me to say, why, you must be honest, right? But saying it and doing it are 2 really different things, as you can see here. Actually, that has a point. Sam Harris wrote a book called Lying, and he said, studies show even those little white lies that we tell to soften the blow to someone and try to spare someone's feelings, that's really undercutting even the intent of the 10 Commandments. He said at one point, all forms of lying, including white lies meant to spare the feelings of others, are associated with less satisfying relationships. In other words, if someone is asking your opinion on something, you give it, regardless of the consequences. And he went on in his book to say that he was by poolside with a friend, and his friend asked him if he thought he was fat. And Sam said, well, I wouldn't exactly call you that, but if I were you, I could stand to lose 25 pounds. Now, if we were texting, I would ask you, hit A if you think Sam lost him as a friend, or B if he retained him as a friend. And the answer was B. As a matter of fact, they're closer friends than ever, and his friend has lost 15 pounds. The point Sam makes is this: you don't do anybody any good by being dishonest, even in a little thing. And if that little thing is being overweight, if you practice on that, then you're better able to help someone deal with a moral issue or an ethical issue, spiritual issue. It's tough to do, isn't it? But when you do that, you free up the relationship, just like what we're talking about, so the person can trust you more and you can trust the person more. You become stronger because you trust. You become stronger because you respect. You become stronger because you're honest. And that, my friends, is the strength behind the 10 Commandments, the 10 invitations. It demands that we are honest with God, reflected through one another, through a lifestyle of honesty. And that is love. Sunday school teacher was teaching her 5- and 6-year-olds about the 10 Commandments. And she had just said, the 10 Commandments tell us how we should treat our parents. Thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother. So tell me, class, is there any commandment that tells us how we should treat our brothers and sisters at home? And one little boy, who was the eldest in his family, shot up a hand and said, yes, thou shalt not kill. He had a point. But it reminded me that someone also asked Jesus once upon a time about, is there a commandment that's the best? And remember how Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your mind. Is that not what being honest is? This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. You must love your neighbor as you love yourself. All the law and the prophets depend on these 2 commands. Respect God and be honest. Respect your neighbor and be honest. Respect, be honest, and be free. The word of the Lord this morning.